So what do we got now with correlation? There's a positive correlation, negative correlation, and then to measure how strong these two variables are related to each other, we have this thing called correlation coefficient. And so you can take a look at the correlations that we talked about already and kind of imagine for yourself, okay, if I'm thinking about this chart here, where would I go with each of these? So for example, our first example was, the hours studied and score on exam number 1, okay? So you think about, if we did that for the class, which we're going to do later, we're going to actually ask you how many hours you studied and then take a look at what score you got on exam number 1. And we're going to see if there's a pattern here that the more hours studied, then did people tend to get higher scores or not, okay? But is it perfect? Because there may be someone who studies 30 hours and maybe gets a lousy score, and someone who studies 5 hours and gets a good score. So we know that it's almost impossible at times with human behavior especially to get a perfect 1.0, right, correlation, or even a minus 1.0 correlation. So we're very impressed in human behavior when we get correlations of 0.50 or 0.63 or something like that, or minus 0.70. It's like, whoa, these two variables are really highly correlated with each other, okay? So let me give you another example of correlation. Socioeconomic status and tendency toward obesity. Ooh, I have to think about that one. That is, as people move up, or as we take a look at more people who are higher in socioeconomic status, again, education, occupation, and income, then what happens to obesity? So you have to think about that one, and then think to yourself, okay, so is that a positive or negative correlation? Okay. And then, how strong is it? In other words, how close to 0 would you put it? Is it maybe well, first of all, is it positive or negative? Well, I'll give you the answer. Think for a moment. What would your guess be? Well, it's generally a negative correlation. Really? Yes. Generally, poorer people have tendency toward obesity for all kinds of reasons. They eat food that is, more fat-laden. They don't have the opportunities to, engage in exercise and health clubs and, get the kinds of opportunities that people with higher socioeconomic status have. But then ask yourself, so, where then, if I know it's a negative correlation, as socioeconomic status goes up and obesity goes down, then where is it on the left side of that chart? How strong is it? Would it be like a minus 0.80 or minus 0.30? And, the point I want you to get is, for you to get this sense of, how strong do I think the correlation is between those two variables? Got that? So that's what correlation is all about. This is something that if you take a class in statistics, you take a class in economics and sociology, you're going to see that term correlation coming up again and again. And so it's a very important issue because we can't always go out and do studies, experimental studies. Sometimes we just have to look at this variable over here, look at that variable over there, and see what happens. Let me give you another example of that. Think about this one, unemployment rate, okay? So as unemployment rate goes up, okay, that is, fewer and fewer people are unemployed, what happens to suicide rates? Unemployment rates go up, suicide rates, yes, in general go down, because people then, have jobs, they have money, they have more hope and so on. But now I want you to think about this for a moment. We could then change, the direction of the word. Rather than unemployment rate, we could call it instead employment rate, right? So as employment rate goes up, as more people are unemployed, in fact, I think I said that wrong, didn't I? That as unemployment goes down, suicide goes up, right? But if we looked at employment instead, then as employment goes up, suicide rate goes down. Got it? So part of it is how we're labeling that variable, employment versus unemployment. Okay? All right. I'll give you one more. Hours spent on Facebook and loneliness. In other words, what is the relationship between the number of hours, and again, we're taking a look at thousands of people who then maybe we could have them clock the number of hours they are on Facebook and then have them rate on a scale how lonely they are. And what do you think we find? The more hours spent on Facebook, guess what? Loneliness goes up. Well, you say, well, gee, that doesn't seem like it's very highly correlated. Well, then where would you put it on the correlation coefficient chart? Got it? Okay, so that's what I wanted you to get about this concept called correlation. Let's move next to another concept.